If you followed my work on my socials for the past few years, you might have seen that I worked on one of the biggest Pokemon projects ever done. I drew every Pokemon and each of their unique forms. This means, for example, I drew all 28 unknown forms, all 4 Deoxys, every Charizard, and you get the idea. As of the time of this video, there are 1,025 Pokemon in the National Pokédex, but if you take into account their other forms, there are roughly 1,600 Pokemon, and I took on the challenge of drawing every single one. I want to tell you the story of how I got here and show you the process I went through to draw them all. And be sure to stay till the end to see the full time lapse of the amazing journey I went through to create this. And honestly, it was quite emotional for me watching it back and seeing how far I've come with this project. So please be sure to stay till the end and witness it as well. But before I do that, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell. And check out my other videos too, as this is a variety Pokemon channel. Also, this video was made to celebrate drawing every Pokemon form and reaching 1,000 subs. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you all so much. Your support means a lot, and I'm really happy that you guys enjoy my videos. And one more thing, I want to quickly say my next sub goal, but because I'm already talking a lot, if you want to jump ahead to Gotta Draw 'em All, go to this timestamp, but I'll try to make this quick. With how easy I reached my first 3 sub goals, I wanted to make the next one a bit more challenging. With that said, the next sub goal will be 5,000 subs. And for that video, I want to open 100 Black Bolt and White Flare packs, which also includes this Japanese Black Bolt booster box. Gen 5 is my favorite region, and there's no better way to celebrate 5,000 subs than opening a set based on Gen 5. And to keep the theme of 5 going, for the grand finale, I want to open these 5 packs from some of the biggest sets in the modern TCG. So if you don't want to miss that, then definitely be sure to subscribe. And now, let's start from the beginning of Pokemon Gotta Draw 'em All. It all started when I was a kid. I had these Let's Find Pokemon books that are kind of like I Spy books, where you're given 3 Pokemon to look for in each picture. And I thought it was so much fun looking at all the pictures, finding all the fun things the Pokemon were up to, all the hidden details and references. Side note, remember when Togepi and Meryl were new Pokemon? Wow, I'm old. I don't remember the exact year I got these books, but I know early to maybe mid-2000s is a good guesstimate. These books gave me the foundation for wanting to do something like this for my first Gotta Draw 'em All project that I would attempt almost a decade later. In 2013, I started what I thought at the time was my biggest Pokemon project ever, a picture consisting of 9 smaller drawings that would make up a bigger 3x3 picture when put together. This was at a time when Gen 6 was the latest generation, and what made this drawing difficult was that I challenged myself to hand draw all 721 Pokemon available at the time. Not every form, just every Pokemon at least once. And because I also had to juggle school back then, I didn't have all the time to dedicate myself to this project, so this took 2 years to finish. I was beyond ecstatic and happy that I completed this 2-year project, and I thought this would be the last time I attempted something like this. Fast forward not even a year later, in mid-2016, and I wanted to try this again. It was nowhere near the same scale as the previous, but basically I wanted to hand draw all the Pokemon in Sun and Moon's Alola Pokédex in this 2x2 paper grid, which meant around 300 Pokemon. This smaller project was eventually finished in May 2017. By the way, these 2 projects alone probably deserve their own videos because there's so much to talk about regarding these 2 alone, so that's just the TLDR version. I told myself that I wouldn't attempt these long drawing projects anymore because of the time and energy it took, but did I listen to myself? Fast forward again, only a year and a half later to around October 2018. Where I wanted to plan an even greater, far more expansive and ambitious Poké project that I had ever done before. I wanted to draw every single Pokemon and form that has ever existed in the main games. Yes, I didn't count the side games because there's just way too many to account for that are constantly being added. So yeah, main game forms only. This drawing was first meant to be completed for Pokemon's 25th year anniversary, so I had until 2021 to finish it. This also means that since it was 2018, only Gens 1 through 7 were out at the time. So I had to make sure to account for those Pokemon and the future Gen 8s that would inevitably come out in 2019. With that said, I had to be strategic about how I wanted the map to look and where the Pokemon would go. After a lot of planning and sketching, I came up with this as a base map outline. Oh yeah, by the way, I wanted to hand draw this at first, which Thankfully I didn't, because I think I would have been miserable. Luckily, as I was still in the planning phase, later that year, I got an iPad for Christmas from my parents, so I started getting into digital art for the first time, and I realized how much easier Gotta Draw 'Em All would be if it was created digitally. Anyways, back on topic. As this was for Pokemon's 25th year anniversary, I wanted to represent each region as different land masses. So we have islands that represent Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, Unova, Kalos, Alola, and what would eventually be Galar in preparation for Generation 8. And right in the middle of it all was an island that was just meant to represent a Pokeball. But little did I know that in 2018, I would technically be predicting the general shape of Paldea 4 years before it was even revealed. And just like with my first project from 2013, this was divided into multiple mini drawings. This time it was 12. Now that I had a general layout, it was time for me to actually draw the map, and fast forwarding a bit, I landed on this. The first map draft I can find was from December 26, 2019, and what you see here is the finished map from August 25th, 2020. Yes, 2020. The year we all had to stay home because of a certain something. So I was at home almost all the time, which meant I had more time to work on Gotta Draw 'Em All. Thus, I had more time to plan and figure out certain issues. One of which was really big. Remember how I said I had to be strategic about where to put Pokemon? Well, little did I know that Gen 8 would introduce Dynamax/Gigantamax Pokemon. You know, the towering Godzilla forms some Pokemon have. I had a new problem on my hands. How could I fit these behemoths into Gotta Draw 'Em All? I know I could put some in the distance on the horizon of the picture so that can make up for their gargantuan size, but I wouldn't be able to fit them all there. I felt crushed. I was pretty far into planning at this point, and I had to figure out a way to incorporate Gigantamax forms. It felt like I couldn't find a way to reasonably include them. But then months later, it dawned on me. I could make what are essentially mini replicas that represent Gigantamax Pokemon. Here's what I mean. For Gmax Gengar, for example, I had the idea of making it a tent. I came across this tent in Festival Plaza in Sun and Moon, and it occurred to me that Gmax Gengar looks kinda like a tent. So that's what I did. And other examples are that I made toy stalls for other Gmax toys, and some Pokemon would essentially cosplay or pretend to be their Gigantamax forms with a bit of creativity or paint. So with that big problem out of the way, I was finally able to finish the sketching phase and move on to... This was the day I started drawing the first Pokemon. And fittingly enough, Pikachu was the first one drawn. Like, come on, I had to. Who else was I going to draw first? So my plan was that I would work on the Pokemon of each section on a separate canvas, and then paste them onto the full picture, which reduces the quality a little bit, but it was the only way I was able to figure out how to get them all on one picture. And yes, this was way before I learned that vector programs existed, which basically keep the quality of the art no matter how much you scale it up or down. Maybe one day I'll figure out how to use it, but for now, I like drawing with Procreate. Anyways, it was pretty smooth sailing from here. I'll show you quick glimpses of the time lapses because I want to save the full versions for the ultimate time lapse at the end. So be sure to stick around for that. Stylistically, I wanted the Pokemon to emulate the original Ken Sugimori art style, to give it a sense of a nostalgic feel for us Pokemon fans who grew up with it since the beginning. Also, the Sword and Shield Isle of Armor DLC was released around this time, which meant more new Pokemon to add. The process of drawing all these Pokemon took almost a year, with the last Pokemon form added being Eternamax Eternatus. Oh, and also during this time, the first new Legends Arceus Pokemon were revealed, so I added them too. But I wasn't done just yet. In order to make this a big celebration for Pokemon 25, I also wanted to add notable trainers from the games and anime, and even famous Poketubers, as well as big names in the Pokemon franchise. And after all of that work, on August 30th, 2021, Pokemon Gotta Draw 'Em All was finally completed. After spending 3 years on this project to draw every Pokemon form from Gens 1 through 8, I was finally able to rest. And with Legends Arceus coming out soon in January 2022, I knew I had to add those Pokemon too when they were revealed, but after that, I thought for sure I was done with this project. Fast forward not even a full month later, Pokemon Presents unveils Gen 9 Scarlet and Violet. You know what I had to do. Yep, throughout that year, whenever they revealed new Pokemon, I added every single one of them, and slowly, my Gotta Draw 'Em All project would grow to include more and more Gen 9 Pokemon. And then after the release of Scarlet and Violet, I had roughly 100 more Pokemon to add. So fast forward again a few months later, the Gen 9 edition of Gotta Draw 'Em All was now complete. Or so you would think. Yeah, no. 2023 saw the release of Scarlet and Violet's DLC, Teal Mask and Indigo Disc, which meant that these guys were also added. And fast forward again to 2024, where the last Pokemon in the current National Pokédex was added, with the reveal of Pecharunt. After that, I figured I wanted to continue this on for the inevitable Generation 10, so I've been preparing for that. And since they could easily introduce over 100 more forms, I started working on what's called the expansion, because I'd need more room in order to add an entire new generation to this project. So hopefully the region that gets introduced fits well in this area I have here. Please, it better fit. And honestly, at the time I'm editing this video, the new Pokemon Presents might have already come out and revealed new Pokemon or Megas. So if that's the case, I'll quickly show them here, or make a short for it, I don't know yet. But as of now, before the July 2025 Pokemon Presents, all 1025 Pokemon, plus their 600 forms, are all here in this picture. I even included Pokemon or forms that aren't technically forms, but are associated with a Pokemon, like, for example, Rotom Bike, Rotom Drone, Rotomi, Rotom Phone, even the fossils too. And at least in the TCG, they say that fossils, quote-unquote, evolve into the Pokemon they're based on, so I guess there's some merit to adding the fossils too. There are some obvious exceptions to the drawing every form rule, like I only included forms that are in the main series games, no shiny forms, because if I did that, then I would just be redrawing every Pokemon again, but in a different color, and that's just not fun. But there is a small reference to a shiny Pokemon somewhere in here, if you can find it. And no 4 billion Spinda. Yes, Spinda indeed has over 4 billion, with a B, forms. And yeah, you can see why that was a very, very obvious one to rule out, though I did make a small reference to that exception. But yeah, I really want to make separate videos in the future for more hidden details, Easter eggs, and a deeper analysis into Gotta Draw 'Em All. And another video for the notable people I've also included, because there's so much more to say about just those two topics alone. So if you don't want to miss that, then remember to subscribe. And now that you know the story, there's one more thing I want to show you. I have a very special time lapse that culminates the entire history of this project. It really was a lot of work, and I really hope you enjoy it. And without further ado, here's the ultimate time lapse of Pokemon Gotta Draw 'Em All. And that is Pokemon Gotta Drama. I still can't believe that over 1,600 Pokemon are in this single picture, and I want to thank you all for watching till the very end. So yeah, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell, and with that, I'll see you guys next time.